Hello, this is Isa with the Inglewood Times. We're here with Christian Contreras for the segment Legally Speaking. Christian, can you tell us a little bit more about your business? Can you introduce Christian Contreras Law Firm to the public?
Right, well, I am the principal and owner of the law offices of Christian Contreras. I practice civil rights, criminal defense, personal injury, and business litigation. I have an office in downtown LA and also in Montebello. I also lead a nonprofit called Justice X. Justice X is a coalition of Black and brown lawyers advancing Black and brown interests. I serve on various nonprofits. I serve nonprofits as their attorney, and I also sit on different board of directors for different organizations.
What drives you to do this? What motivates you?
What motivates me is definitely helping people, understanding that everyone has a story, everyone has a struggle, everyone has a need that needs to be fulfilled in different contexts. You know, everyone is human, and that's why we're not robots. We're not just this one size fits all. We all have our insufficiencies, our deficiencies, our fallacies, are just things that make us human, you know, because no one is perfect, and anyone who says they're perfect is lying or they're deceiving you. So really for me, it started when I was 12 years old. You know, I was living a perfect life, I think. I mean, I wasn't rich, I was poor, but I had enough to eat every day, and I was going to school, and, you know, I had a very regular life. I was active, I was always doing things, you know, and as a single child of a single mother, my mom and I, we were very active. She had me when she was 16. So I didn't have a dad, but I didn't need one because I had her. So we were very active. We would go to the park, she would take me to school on her bike, and we were just very, very active. So, you know, when I hadn't seen her for a few days, it caught me off guard, and I was worried because I would see my mom every day. You know, it's something that something I was acclimated, be used to doing every day, seeing my mom and being with her. So she was dating a guy at the time, and he pulls me to the side and he says, "I need to talk to you about your mom." I said, "Okay, yes, where is she?" You know, so we started talking about my mom, and we drive to the hospital, and we drive to the hospital, go inside, and we go into the hospital room. My mom is there. She's alive, but in bad shape. She was in a car accident. She was hit from behind by two vehicles on the 5 freeway, and she had a spinal cord injury, and she's paralyzed from the waist down. Permanently. So that flipped everything upside down. And of course, because she couldn't work, because she couldn't provide for the family, then we couldn't pay rent, and we couldn't buy food, and you couldn't buy the things that you usually buy with money you receive from a job. So we ended up being homeless. We went to Skid Row for a few years, and it was tough there. You know, a lot of despair, a lot of addiction, a lot of hopelessness. But I was at that age where I think I was strong enough to persevere, become resilient, and that's what motivated me to become an advocate, because when I was there, I felt invisible. I felt like no one cared about us. I was just a homeless kid. No, you know, my isn't written yet. I have the power to really take charge of what I want to do, and I have the power to change my fate and my destiny. So I said, I want to be in a position where I have the power to change people's lives, change my own life, and I want to come back here. I want to come back here and help others, and also really helping people out of this position, because sometimes that's all someone needs, just a helping hand and a boost up. So I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know anyone actually, but I said, I think I want to become a lawyer. So I went to school, I applied to law school, still didn't know any lawyers, and I eventually got into law school and passed the bar my first time, and now I'm here.
So how do you get out of Skid Row?
Well, I didn't really do much. I was only 12. So my mom, she's the person who had the plan. She You know, despite her being in a wheelchair, she decided that she was going to obtain her data entry certificate. Mm-hmm. And while we were homeless, while I was going to school, because I was still going to school in middle school, she received her certificate and obtained a job as a data entry clerk. And that's how we were able to rise out of homelessness.
That's amazing. And so ever since you experienced what homelessness, that's what motivated you to come to the place that you are, like become the person that you are, right?
Oh, of course, yes.
So how do you help homeless people at the moment?
So there's a number of things that I did. So the first thing that I did is we created a nonprofit called Justice X. It's a coalition of Black and brown lawyers advancing Black and brown interests and the interests of marginalized communities. So it's myself, Humberto Guizar, Stephen King, and Austin Dove. So what we do is, as a civil rights lawyer, even as a criminal defense attorney, someone walks through the door, they come into my office, the wrong, the bad thing, and the misfortune has already occurred. We're here to try to remedy something. We're here to try to correct something. And I do that. I love to do that. But at the same time, if we really want to make this world a better place, we need to come in before that harm occurs, before that bad thing happens. And it's called a prophylactic approach, where we have to understand what are the things that could help people to avoid being in that situation or not experience that harm. So there's different ways to do that. One of those is education. Education empowers people, it equips people, and it allows people to understand their rights. So with Justice X, we launched an education initiative where it's free of charge, a multi-week course where people come in and we teach them about their rights, and we use real life cases that we have, and most of all, and more importantly, we empower them. We tell them, you could do it. You know, if someone like me could get to this position, you could get to that position as well. So when you empower people, you make that person a leader in their community, and then they influence all those around themselves. They influence others to become better, because once they set out to become a better person, they exude that energy to those around them, and it creates a better environment for everyone, because then people realize that they don't have to be involved with gangs, they don't have to be involved with crime, they don't have to be involved with drugs. They could be leaders in their community, and they could be pillars of their community as well. So that's one of the ways that we've been helping the community, specifically with individuals experiencing homelessness. I also volunteer at the Los Angeles Mission. I also volunteer at the Union Rescue Mission with different programs. We're having a program at Gilbert Lindsay Park in South Los Angeles in conjunction with the Reimagine LA Foundation and the LA Mission, where we're setting up clinics, and we're helping people in that area in South Los Angeles just have the services that they need, and also legal help that they need. So we're on the ground helping and the day-to-day things, but we're also involved in policy and ways to change it at the macro level. So we were also the big lawsuit, LA Alliance versus the City of Los Angeles, which was the lawsuit filed in federal court by different constituents and stakeholders, where they're asking that the City of Los Angeles and County of Los Angeles provide more beds to help those who are suffering from homelessness. So I represented the Latino Coalition Los Angeles, which is a nonprofit organization, and we stepped into that lawsuit saying, look, you know, these are different needs that these type of people are experiencing. We need to be a voice here, because we understand what some of the issues are and what some of the solutions are. So just a number of things that we do, that I do, just to make sure that the homeless population, the people who are experiencing homelessness are served.
So you mentioned something very important, and it was coming to you before everything goes down, right? And you mentioned about education, but what happens to divorces and those things that is not specifically about education? How would you decrease divorces? How can you improve it without having to go to an attorney to fix this? Does it make sense?
No, your question doesn't make sense, but I'm just trying to connect it with the overall needs of the community. So if you're asking individually for people who are experiencing a divorce and don't have money, don't have resources for a lawyer, is that generally?
Yes.
So if you're in a divorce and you don't have any money, which a lot of people don't. Let's be honest. The majority of people are poor, and we need to change that. You know, the 1% shouldn't have all the money. The 0.01% shouldn't have all the money. A lot of people are poor. That's the reality. So the thing that you need to do is come to the table, mediate. I know emotions are involved. I know maybe someone cheated or maybe someone did something to cause the divorce, and the person who was harmed, the person who was aggrieved, wants the other person to pay. But I don't think it should be about being vindictive, revenge, or retribution. It should be more about getting to the solution. So what you need to do is definitely mediate an informal resolution with the other person, with the other party, so you don't have to be involved in years and years and years of litigation. If you are involved in years and years and years of litigation, then you know, I encourage you to go to legal clinics to seek the advice of people who are in that area, so you have a better understanding of what to do in those different situations.
There is many issues that people encounter in life where there is a need of an attorney, and as you said before, like, it's very complicated to have the amount of money to afford one, right?
Of course.
Happens with bankruptcy. Like, what would be the best way to avoid it? And for you to be, well, you will need help, of course, from an attorney, but what happens if you do not have the means to afford an attorney?
In bankruptcy?
Yes.
Well, to answer your question, my advice is don't do it the inexpensive way. I think, you know, there's a lot of sayings that talk about just pay for an inexpensive service. You know, maybe sometimes this happens in the Latino community. Notaries, notarios, people who are experiencing different legal issues say, well, I can't afford an attorney. I want to go to a notary, someone who's not licensed, someone who's not a professional, and just do it more cheaply. Sometimes that ends up costing you more. So I think you definitely make sure that you pay for a quality service. You don't try to do it inexpensively, because then it might harm you. And you're just gonna have to pay for it, because it's bankruptcy. You have to put your liabilities, your schedules, and ask the court to relieve you of that debt. If you can't afford that, then again, those legal clinics, I think, is the best way to go. Don't represent yourself. That's a tough, even more tough, because then you might do something wrong and screw everything up.
Do you believe that those minor crimes like drunk driving or driving under the influence or shoplifting or maybe just robbing will be better if you receive education? That would be one of the solutions for it.
Well, I don't think a DUI is a minor crime. I think it's a very serious concern. I think the crimes that are minor to me are the crimes that don't have victims.
Okay.
You know, for example, resisting arrest. Mm-hmm. There's no victim there. Who's the victim? The cop? For what? Just because you moved a little? So I think, and your question has to do with, do they deserve less of a punishment or less of what?
It's more on how would you avoid them.
Oh, and education. How education.
Yeah.
How do you avoid those crimes? Look, like I said, no one's perfect. No one's perfect. People make mistakes. How to avoid those crimes is circumstantial. It depends on the facts. But like I said, education is power, because then you understand how different laws may affect you. For example, resisting arrest, another the crime that I just. You think that it's okay to talk smack to a police officer when the police officer is giving you a lawful order? Let's say something happened and you want to record and you're talking smack to the police officer and interfering with their duties, then that is technically delaying or obstructing a peace officer's lawful duties, because you're interfering with the investigation. But you think, oh no, I'm fine because I'm just exercising my First Amendment right to record and I'm not committing a crime. If you were to come to one of my classes, I would tell you that yes, you could record the police officers, but you need to do it in a way that's safe, and you need to do it in a way which does not interfere with their duties. So that's how education plays a role in avoiding crimes like that, because you understand that what you're doing may or may not be legal, and that you're not in a position where you're accused of a crime.
Of course. This comes to one of my last questions, and it will be, why do you think crimes are going up nowadays?
Well, I think that's a flawed statement, because
Really?
yeah, it's a flawed statement because not all crimes are going up. There are certain crimes that are up, but doesn't mean all crimes are up. I will concede that, you know, homicides are up, but other types of crimes in different categories aren't up. So to be frank with you, I think because COVID.
COVID did this too.
No, let me address one thing real quickly.
Yes.
The bail issue, because people will say, well, you know, there's so much crime because there's no bail, and these people just get arrested, they go to jail, and there's no bail, so they're not in jail. Well, let me say a few things. Number one, the no bail policy applies to specific non-violent crimes. So if you're out here shooting people, bail is going to apply to you. And I practice criminal defense. Most of my clients who come to me, there's a bail there, you know, so it's not as common as people think. Secondly, in terms of the crimes going up, I think, you know, there's also a gun problem in the United States. People have to have access to guns who aren't equipped to use them. You know, there's gun laws where you have to take a test, you have to get a license, and that's how you could get a gun. You know, there's people who are getting access to guns and just shooting people. So how are we going to stop that? I think it really depends on the policy of guns. I respect the Second Amendment. I'm a proponent for the Second Amendment, but at the same time, no right is unrestricted. No right is unlimited. And to be 100%, the Second Amendment is one of those rights that hasn't been restricted whatsoever by the Supreme Court. Our Fourth Amendment rights, our Fifth Amendment rights, our Sixth Amendment rights, even our First Amendment rights have been restricted by the Supreme Court. The Fourth Amendment, your right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, the Supreme Court has said that, oh, well, you need to give officers more leeway and more deference so they could do their jobs. But in the Second Amendment context, there hasn't been many cases which say, no, you can't own a bazooka, no, you can't own a tank and use it wherever you want. So that's a fact, that it's been unchecked, it's been unrestricted. So you have COVID, of course, where people were locked up in their homes for good reason, because we were in a pandemic. And so you have COVID, people were frustrated, and now that they're out, you had statistics of 1 year where people were just in their homes not doing anything. There was no crime going on because no one was out. So when you compare 2021, even this year, 2022 to 2021, even 2020, the numbers are higher because the comparison is in a different level. So you have the COVID factor, you have the Second Amendment and how people have just free access to guns. And third, of course, it depends. It's not because of no bail, it's because of just other factors. So that's...
I have a question for this. So going back to 2019, do you think that you have the same amount of crimes from 2019 and 2022? I know that we talked about like the pandemic being one of the major like motivators, or not motivators, but
a factor.
Factor, exactly. Thank you so much. Of crime increase, right? But if you see like those, I think right now in social media you can see more people like stealing, shoplifting, for example. They just grab like a bag and they're like shameless, just shoplifting. And that comes to the bail part, right? Because I feel like now that there's no bail, like people tend to be like, oh, more free, you know, like I can shoplift right now since there's not a major crime. Does make sense?
That makes sense, but what gives me pause is it's a fact that the prices of homes have gone up.
Yes.
It's a fact that the price of gas has gone up. It's a fact that rents have gone up. But it's also a fact that the minimum wage has not gone up. So why are people stealing? Why are people stealing goods? Why are people stealing necessities like toothpaste and shampoo? Because people are poor and people need those things. So I'm not saying that the government should bail the people out, but at the same time, you know, we live in the world where the 0.01% are billionaires and billionaires and billionaires, whereas the everyday person, you know, they can't even afford their rent. The rents are at an astronomical level, whereas, you know, the minimum wage is still what it was 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. So you need to identify what's the root cause of those things. You're talking about consequences. So when there's no bail, that's a consequence to when someone has committed a crime. But what is the reason why someone was even engaging in that crime? I think we need to take a better look at and understand what we need to do to fix those things.
I love that point of view, because exactly, you need to see like the core of the issue, right?
Yeah.
To know where to start like fixing it. So this goes to my last question. Is there something that you could tell people that cannot afford an attorney?
Yeah, because this is the what channel again? The Legally
Speaking.
Legally Speaking. So to the people who need an attorney, who are in a legal bind, I suggest you go to your legal aid center. You know, that's one of my goals. That's you know, when I was homeless and when I was in Skid Row, I said I want to open a legal aid center. I want to open a center where people could go, and I have an issue, help me. And that's a legal aid center. So there's multiple legal aid centers throughout the county. So that's where you need to go first. Each court has a self-help center. So that's where the court provides resources, sometimes attorneys, to help you. So legal aid, self-help, and then potentially pro bono or low bono attorneys who could help you.
I'm sorry, but a question just popped in my head.
That's fine.
What would be the main difference between a private attorney and a government, like a supplier attorney by the government?
So it depends. So the Sixth Amendment provides the right to counsel for those who are accused of crimes. That's the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. So this only applies to criminal cases. So if you're accused of a crime, you could have a public defender. In no other area of law can you have a lawyer appointed by the government. So are you talking about a public defender, or are you talking about one of those lawyers in the self-help center?
The public defender.
Well, public defenders are good. They're good, but you know, sometimes they may have a lot of work. You know, I'm not here to badmouth public defenders whatsoever. They're good. They're good lawyers. But, you know, they don't get paid enough.
Of course.
They get paid around $70,000. You know, that's not enough. That should change, first of all. So the reality of public defenders is that they have a lot of cases. They may not work a lot, and they're overworked. So they may not be able to pay enough attention to your case. I work generally 9 in the morning to midnight, and I work every day. So if you're coming to me, I'm going to pay special attention to your case, and I don't have that many cases, and that's intentional, because I don't want to be overworked. I don't want to have too many cases, so I could pay special attention to the cases that I have. So the main distinction is that you have more time, more attention, and sometimes a better quality of service with a private lawyer.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Christian.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. That's all the time that we have for today. We'll see you in the next segment.